One good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to our esteemed participants, depending on the time zone you are joining from. Whether you are starting your day with us or winding down in the evening or somewhere in between, we are delighted to have you here for today's LinkedIn audio event on value engineering. And I'm pretty sure we'll be able to create some value for you today. I am Dr. Rasdeep, and I'll be your moderator for this insightful discussions. And I am equally delighted to introduce our esteemed panelists, Ritika Pandey, Krutibas Biswal, and our man of all season, Kailash Chaudhary. Their expertise and insights promise to make today's conversation truly enriching, and we look forward to that. A warm greetings to all of our panelists. We are equally delighted, for to have them with their industry insights and all. Uh, so to start with, we would like to know from you all a concise explanation of the concept of value engineering applied, of course, within your industry, or specifically, like if you would like to share with our audience that how you and your team has utilized the aspect of value engineering in your daily operations. If you like to share some aspect of that, it would be a great insight for all of us. So Kailash,
Yeah,
shall we
yeah,
start
thank you.
with you?
Yeah, sure, sure. Thank you, Rajdeep.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, as I was talking about in my intro, also, I'm from the construction industry. So, in construction, the value engineering is like having a superhero on the team. It is basically the accelerating the pace to save the finding innovative ways to maximize the value while minimizing the cost or improve the efficiency. If I break it down, imagine you are tasked to construct a new office building, say, suppose. Your goal is to create a high quality structure with a set budget. The budget is always limited in every aspect. So, this is where the value engineering steps in. Instead of instead of simply cutting corners to meet the financial constraints on budget, the value engineering is basically focuses on the optimizing every aspect of the project to achieve the best possible outcome. How we do in day to day scenario in real life, if I give one live example where our team is working on a residential housing project, suppose, and we have hit a snag there. The original design, say, suppose, calls for expensive imported material, right? So that are pushing the project over budget because of imports, because of there may be a delays in procurement, there may be many constraints there. So instead of panicking at that situation, we gather around the drawing board and we put our value engineering hats on. So first we assess the situation, what are the project's key objectives, what we are or this thing trying to achieve by this project, what aspects can we tweak and what we cannot without compromising the quality. We brainstormed and we find out the alternative, considering the factors like cost, durability of that material, and aesthetics of the material. And after careful analysis, we came up with a brilliant solution. Instead of using imported stone for the exterior, we opt for a locally sourced material. So that locally sourced material is not just equally durable, but also the significantly cheaper because of the transportation cost or because of many factors there. So not only this decision saves us money, but it also supports in the local economy and reduce our carbon footprints also. Now sustainability, carbon footprints are the big value additions when you are able to reduce that. But in total project, we are not just done yet, because I've just given you one example. It is the value engineering is a ongoing process, constantly evolving as new challenges arise. Throughout the project construction phase, we remain vigilant, identify the different opportunities for optimization at every turn. Wherever we have some opportunity, we use to explore that opportunity. For example, during the framing phase, we discover more efficient way to lay out the floor plan. So by efficient way of this layout, we could reduce the amount of delay needed without sacrificing the structural integrity of the structure. This is not only cost cutting but also speed up the construction timeline. It delivers the project ahead of schedule. And at the end of the project or near to the end of the project, we conduct a final review to ensure that every decision aligns with our value engineering principles. We scrutinize the details, looking for any areas where we can fine tune the design or trim unnecessary expenses. But at the end of the value engineering is not about saving the money, it's about delivering the value in its purest form rather. And in construction, this is basically creating a spaces that enhance the people's life without while respecting the constraints of the time and budget and the efficiency what we have. In my at the end of this this intro or on this brief about the value engineering, it's not about the reducing the cost or reducing the time. It is about thinking out of the box. It is about the challenging the status quo or pushing the boundaries of what is possible in terms of cost, in terms of timelines, in terms of any value addition. And now after this net zero, sustainability and all these things, we have a lot of opportunities to add value to the projects. So this is how I will answer your question, Rajdeep.
Thanks, Kailash. Our next two panelists comes from the product and process background. So I would invite them. Maybe we'll start with the Krutivas, and from the processes, Krutivas, if you should share some highlights from the process and how to optimize that using the value engineering concepts.
All right. Thank you, Rajdeep. So I love the comment from Kailas, as you mentioned, no, value engineering is not about the cost cutting, right? It is a way of working. Whenever any product or any project we start with, we have multiple areas to look at, right? To know how can I deliver the project on time, on budget, on cost, right? No, but question is,
Krutivas, just I would like to intervene. Actually, my next question was, like on how value engineering differ from this cost cutting and cost reductions and cost saving measures. So, if you like in that questions itself, since you are addressing it, so I would also like you should also highlight that aspects that how it is differ from cost cutting and cost saving measures.
Sure. I'll just touch
Yeah.
base on that as well, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. So, what we're discussing here, the concept of value engineering is known to a lot of us, or many of us, but understood by few. Now, why I say that, like as the topic just as they've touched upon, it is not similar, no, equal to cost cutting. When people look at a value engineering as a concept, they say, okay, go and cut the cost. It is not like that. It is all about looking on the product and the function it does, right? So when we look at or evaluate in a process point of view, we ask certain key questions when you enter into the value engineering brainstorming session. So the question we put for, like, what is that function this particular product will play, right? Why we are taken into consideration, how much it will cost, and what does it do, right? And what must it do? So when we say what must it do, it means the basic primary function that particular product should play. Let's assume a simple example of a pencil, right? A pencil is designed to do some marking, to do some writing. So that's a basic primary function the pencil will do. But what else it can do? So it may use as an eraser, you may use as the leads or the graphite, all of that, right? So there is an alternative use of this product, right? So in value engineering, we look at end to end of this product and at the design phase. So what happens in a new product design? 30% goes for the manufacturing, 70% goes to the design and R&D phase, right? In this 70 phase, the value engineering comes in. So what we see in the industry, people bring value engineering as a cost cutting measure after everything finalized. You are into the live product live and you bring value engineering to cut the cost. So that's where the difference it is having in the mindset in the industry as well. So we just look at the cost cutting, but it is not. It has to start from the design phase. You have to answer what function this particular product going to play without compromising its quality, and how can I optimize the cost of this product. That's how the value engineering concept will play a role here, right? Yeah, so with that I'll hand over to you, Rajdeep.
Thank you, Krutibas. Ritika, for our audience, if you elaborate on the concept of value engineering, taking example from your industry.
Yeah, so I think not a lot of difference from what Kailash and Krutiva said, right? Just to summarize, it's the same. The tool is the same. The output is the same. We will continuously improve and optimize our manufacturing, construction processes, and that is how we will get an increased efficiency, productivity, and profitability out of whatever it is that we are doing. So it's pretty much the same for me as well. I relate to the fact, when Krutiba said you cannot do it at the end of the product's life cycle, right? You have to look at value at every stage of the product's life cycle. So, for example, when you're working on your design as an engineer, that is where you first start thinking about value. How much material are you using in that particular component? Is there any opportunity to use a different or a cheaper material, for example? Is there any opportunity to make the product lighter? So a lighter product, a lighter component would mean lesser material costs. So these are all the questions that we ask from the beginning itself, so that we really imbibe value in the product, and not really at the end of at the end of a product launch, where we decide, oh my god, this is suddenly going out of our budget, or it's becoming too high for our overall product cost. So in my industry, that is where I think it's pretty much the same, a little different. It's always seen as a continuous improvement process. It's seen as something that has to be inculcated in every step of the way, and it's more of a mindset, that we use to kind of encourage continuous improvement and innovation. And then, of course, in our manufacturing and in our factories and in our plants, value engineering is also used to look at the different processes that we have and see where they are inefficient, what can be changed, is there material getting waste, is there unnecessary excessive inventory. So yeah, in a gist, it's quite similar, and it's interesting to learn about the other industries as well.
Rajdeep, to just given a day-to-day example, I'll just add to the Kritika was talking about. So Rajdeep, now we are four here. So suppose now you are our host. If you plan a fancy dinner party for all of us, this is one example, right? And then definitely you will have a budget. So there are two options. You could go the cost cutting route and buy the cheapest ingredients for our dinner. Possibly a generic store stuff you takes, you don't put any frills there for decoration and anything. That definitely you will save money. But will your guest impressed with this presentation and this flavor and this sophistication? No. So now let's go to the other part. Let's apply the value engineering to the same scenario. Instead of going to just focusing on the cost cutting, you take a more strategic approach. If say suppose you survey the market on the high quality ingredients and reasonable prices, maybe even focusing on a few key items that will really elevate the meal. You also could get a creative with the preparation of the menu, finding the clever ways of stretching the budget little bit without sacrificing the taste or the presentation. So the result will be, there will be a delicious, memorable feast for all of us within that budget. And this sophistication and flavor is what is the power of the value engineering, wherein within that budget, with your out of box thinking and creative thinking, is aesthetics and its presentation, its taste, its quality remains same, and you put some add some value to that. That is what is a value engineering, basically, in a layman language, if we understand. I think you got my point.
Yes, very much. And thanks for sharing this. I believe even those who are not practicing, they also got their food for thought, or rather, how to plan their food that they are going to serve to their guest. Thanks, Kailash.
Yeah, thank you.
To move ahead, I was thinking, let's suppose, I am not the person who probably use value engineering in a day-to-day affairs. For me, like a long back, during my engineering days, value engineering was, value is nothing but an function divided by cost. And from there the concept came that, okay, you reduce the numerator, anyway the value is bound to get increased. But if I think, okay, let's start today, and I'm going to implement or embrace value engineering in my day-to-day affairs. So what do you think, what first step I should take? uh, we can pose this question to Krutibas, and try to answer it from a different perspective, from covering all different perspectives.
Right. Thanks for that
So
question.
where from we should start, let's suppose, I want to implement this in my company or my project or the product development team where I am involved.
Fantastic, very fantastic and very good question to understand how the value engineering comes to our organization who are not practicing. So, when you start this, so everything as a project, right? When we come from project background, and we say, now whatever you do, you develop a product or you execute a task, it has to go through a project methodology. And the goal of project is to produce value for its stakeholder, for its sponsor, or for its customer, right? So the goal is that the end goal you look at to produce some value for my stakeholders, right? That's the end goal. The question is, how can I create value? Like as we are discussing on the value engineering, how can I have that value generated over optimized cost and the function and the quality of that product maintained, right? Let's assume in an organization you are preparing some kind of a dashboard. Very simple example. Now what happens in today's organization, the sponsors comes in and he said, okay, my customer is looking for a dashboard, or I am looking for a dashboard. They just bring people and deploy certain data scientist people and start working on the dashboard. Now the question is, before these are the premature decisions, right? What do we call it? Because I have to create a dashboard for my project or for my client, but is that what is that requirement I have, right? So is the dashboard is required there, or I need those kind, how many resources and what kind of tools and technology? All that requirement we should be looking at before starting, because that's a planning stage or information gathering stage. Now if you look at in general sense, the sponsor just brings certain people, they start working on the dashboard. Maybe all the information is not used by all of the people, but there will be a lot of redundant things, right? In a lean world, if you look at, we call it a vanity metrics. So you just go and publish that doesn't used by anybody. The question is, before designing that, what is exactly the customer looking for, and what is that ways of working, like how is the speed of delivery, like how quick they want, what are the key metrics they look for, or what is the cost it involved. All this assessment has to be done at the starting phase, and that's the first point of a value engineering workshop or idea. You should have a task force who are part of the value engineering team and has to gather and collect those information to start with. And then when you start it, you have to ask certain key questions, right? And those questions must answer. If I'm designing a dashboard as a product in my system, what answer it should give to my key stakeholder. That's the first question, right? Now, how much it will cost and what is the alternative use of it, right? For example, from a dashboard, I can see the process or project or product is not moving right way. I can take a lot of decision. This is that, right? So those kind of things you should start through. Now, once you have said that, then have a kind of a, for your if the team get formed as a value engineering team or task force, they should answer those questions, then find out what is the requirement, as Kailash also said, right? The aesthetic requirement, the product requirement, the functional requirement of the product. Then prepare a concise statement, right? You have to take to your stakeholder and have that discussion, or if it is a certain project or certain work has to happen, have that a concise statement. How can I get this product delivered with alternative solution with maximum value used and optimized cost? So that's how somebody can think through for a general value engineering to start with. Rajdeep.
Thank you. I believe like all our audience got where to start with, and of course like once we know where to go, people normally figure out how aspect of it. So thanks for that initial starter, taking that example of a dashboard.
Sure.
To move with, like our next segment is like to share the tale of Trump from your professional, and I would like to each one of you to share one instance where you believe that value engineering, I would not use the word cost cutting, but definitely improve the efficiency. And if you could cite that example, of course like probably you have some non-disclosure agreement with your organizations, but still if you could share some one examples where value engineering significantly improve the efficiency of your projects in hand. And maybe we'll start with Ritika, if you take the lead and share the story with us.
Sure, Rajdeep and everyone. I think I want to start by saying, let's not get super technical when we look at value engineering. uh, Keep an open mind. These are things that are that have chances of improvement in your daily life. So if you're in an organization where you've been there for a long time, you know some of the pain areas. So I would say that is where you can really start looking at at value engineering. Also, if you're new to an organization, then you have that fresh perspective. So there also you have a different way of looking at what's going on and where value can be added. So that is what we did. I'm here to share something which I think all of you can relate with. I'm going to talk about a little bit about process value improvement, value enhancement. We had an offline process that was a very manual process. It was related to check in, check out of a company asset, for example. And I think you can all relate to that. So it was a very tedious process. It was an offline process, means it was on paper. You had to fill in a bunch of things on the form. You had to write your justification. You had to write check in, check out dates. You had to get approvals from people manually. You had to go to their desk and get approvals. And even though we are all online and everything is online nowadays, there are always processes. You will see there are places where there is opportunity for improvement. There are places where we are still doing things the old fashioned way. And that is what we looked at. We said, hey, this is a process that is really frustrating. It is taking people 1 to 2 days to actually get that asset in hand. They would have to literally request it 2 3 days before, because they would make mistakes in filling that form, then it would go back, and so on and so forth. So what did we do? We identified what are the critical places in that process where value is being added. So we looked at, okay, we are capturing the usage information that is being verified by somebody. Someone is actually physically issuing the asset and all of that. We then sat and we looked at, and I think we already spoke, Kritibas already spoke about different steps, so I will not go into that. We sat and we analyzed the process and saw, okay, there are places where there are chances for manual errors. There's a big chance for a manual error, and there are places where data is incomplete. You are not giving the information the recipient wants to hear. You are just writing, I want this asset for XYZ purpose, but maybe the recipient wants to know where you are going to use it, what is the space, who are the people you're going to use it with, and so on and so forth. So they might need more details, and all of that was not very clear, and creating unnecessary confusion. Then we analyzed that. We said, of course, the easiest thing is to make this offline to online. We created an online process. We automated the data entry. We used, of course, the electronic system. We had an integrated system with drop downs, and so that it would be easier to auto select some of those things. And then it would just make it would give you an error message if you entered something incorrectly. So it really streamlined the entire process, and we implemented that, and we actually checked it, and we really reduced the turnaround time, like anything. We reduced it from 1.5 days to a few hours. It was a process, so initially, of course, it took time for people to learn the right things, but once they did, it was just a matter of a few hours. So we reduced the turnaround time, we improved the accuracy, and we provided an overall better experience. So again, you can start small. You can start with the processes that are inefficient, and you can bring in your perspective and really help improve them. So yeah, that was my example. Rajdeep, over to you.
Yes,
Rajdeep, are
yeah.
you?
Thank you. Thanks. Kailash, would you like to add? Rather, not add, like, I want like each one of you should cite and separate example and brief our audience about this aspect of value engineering. Kailash? Maybe Krutivas, why don't you pitch in
Sure.
by the time Kailash comes?
Sure, definitely.
Yeah,
This
Rajdeep, am I back now?
Yes, it's
Yes.
back. You can go on, please.
Yeah. Okay, Rajdeep. Sorry to this was actually on mute. So let me give one example. And before example, what I see, Rajdeep, we are very fond of using the fancy words, value engineering and big words. But if you really, if you can relate these things, this value engineering, with the day-to-day life of our own people, our family, our parents, everybody was using it. Like if you are reconstructing, say suppose a building is an old building, you want to refabricate it, we were using the material which was already there. We are using it from the ages. So this is an example of value engineering, but they were not knowing it or calling it value engineering. Now I'll come to the example. We had a project which we need to innovate. This was an office building basically. So we were tasked to build it into a modern office space. So initially what we planned that we completely change the interior and start from the scratch. This was going to cost us a pretty good value. But then we applied some value engineering magic into it. And instead of tearing everything out, we identified the areas where we could repurpose the existing features. Like the structural elements, can we reuse it with the same efficiency, with the same output, with the same functionalities basically. That is what is important. That functionality is what we have, our objective is not going to change. Or it can, if it is enhancing, that is adding much more value. So these structural elements and some of the interiors finishes, actually we identified and we thought to repurpose it. This not only saved us a lot of money, but also shortened the project timelines significantly. In this, the important part was the saving. Instead of saving on materials, you can invest on the energy efficient or this thing, HVAC, which is available now, which was not there earlier. So there you are reducing the energy cost, you are reducing the timelines, you are reducing the material cost. At the same time, you are adding value in terms of the sustainability of the building. So this way, this is what is a important example of value engineering, where 360-degree analysis of areas which we can improve upon. This is what my example, Rajdeep.
Yeah, thank you, Kailash. Krutubas,
Yes.
why
Yes, I'll
don't you
pick that.
share your
Sure.
story?
Sure. So if you look at today, the what is the highest risk as per the World Economic Forum, it is cybersecurity, right? Now, one of the example I can bring quote in here. Since we have not followed this methodology of value engineering, we end up landing in a fraud situation. Now, how the fraud situation happens in an organization, right? Let's say I have to make payment to multiple vendors. As a big organization, I have to make payment to the vendors. Now, I deal with 70 to 80,000 vendors for my organization. Let's assume that way. Again, it's all fictitious, and it's my related example, but not quoting anything here. So now, what is happening in a generalist system? You have to set up a vendor in a system. Have that their bank account, their address, their vendor name, everything mapped. Then those goes through a payment system to make the payment. That's a process generally any organization, the supply chain or procure to pay, they follow. Now in this scenario, when we're designing or maybe when people designing that particular process of making payment to a vendor, on the setup stage, which is the first stage of setting up a vendor, there are multiple areas where it was overlooked. How can these frauds will be happening, right? For example, somebody is sending information to the organization, then they set up in the system, then their account numbers are live in the system. Let's assume supplier A. Now supplier A is set up in the system, and they wanted to change their bank account maybe after 2 to 3 months. And they request to the organization saying that, hey, Mr. X, my bank account number is changing. Please go and change it. And it changes and the payment goes, right? Now these teams are all different. Like the setup teams are different, the process teams are different. They all do not work in a cohesive manner, and that's how it should be, because there is a SOD conflict. That's how it should be. Now the question is, let's assume if the supplier's data or anything got hacked or maybe compromised, so there is a high risk anybody can send a bank change details to me, and I'll go and update, and a payment may land to a fraudster. And that's exactly what happened in this case. Now what is the problem here? When this process get designed initially, we should be looking at how this process will fail, like as we're discussing, the functional requirement of that process. What result I should get? My result or my primary end is I should not pay to a fraudster or to a wrong vendor, right? I should pay to a legitimate vendor. Now, if I would have asked that question in initial days and found out those problems and answered those problems, I could have avoided these frauds. And these frauds, I'm talking about the millions also, because it's a very huge, large organization. Now, how value engineering can help here? If before starting this project or before starting establishing this process, we must have taken into consideration multiple failure points. Like people who knows Six Sigma or Lean, they might have heard a failure mode effect analysis, FMEA. That is one of the key tool we use when you look at the value engineering, right? Now, this is how a process will fail. This is how it will interrupt my function, and this is how I should bring those controls to fix this, right? So that's how one of the example, Rajdeep. So when you start with, have that value engineering team in place, and what happens, we have seen in cost and benefit. At least if you bring value engineering at the design phase, the start phase, you are into the you are not in the loss position. Actually, you will be at least getting break even point, like whatever cost you incur to have this team and working for the process or project or product, you must get your break even. And it has been seen in the study, at least 20 to 30% of cost reduction happen at least when the value engineering team comes to the place. Yeah.
Yeah,
Over to
thank
you,
you,
Rajat.
Krutivas, for citing this very important aspect. Uh, so, that the next comes moving ahead with the terms of this cost cutting or increasing the efficiency. In today's 21st century's organization, basically, innovation and problem solving are one of the two expected, things out of the employees. So I want any one of you could highlight on these aspects how value engineering contribute, because we all know, like, when we go for cost cutting and all, so many things needs to get compromised. So how this aspect of innovation and problem solving, the value engineering itself, the processes involved in value engineering can contribute.
Yeah, I'd like to add a little bit on this because it's a very interesting example that I have. So I mean, I feel value engineering is not about cutting costs. It's about finding creative ways to do more with less, right? Sometimes we Indians call it jugaad. Sometimes it's also about analyzing costs so that you can identify opportunities to innovate and create values for our customers to give them what they didn't know they wanted. So I think a lot of you are aware of Nutella, right? Nutella, some people call it Nutella.
Mhm.
They had this crisis during the World War II when cocoa became very scarce and it became very expensive to use and to buy. So what they did was they started substituting it with hazelnut, right? And they reduced the amount of cocoa and increased the amount of hazelnut, and that's how they came with the popular spread that is today even more popular than regular chocolate spread. So really, that understanding of value, making sure you're still delivering to your customers what they want with the best quality, that is how they got to where they are, and that is how it's become such a brilliant product. So I feel value engineering in itself, it contributes and it encourages to build a culture of continuous improvement, and when you are doing that critical thinking, when you're trying to solve problems, when you have a product in hand and you've been given the task of maximizing or improving its value, that inherently causes you to start thinking outside the box. It causes you to put on your thinking caps, to do some brainstorming, and to look at various options, and that a lot of times I've seen that does result in innovations in actually creating invention disclosures and all of those kind of things. So again, that's how I feel that value engineering has a big role to play in innovation and problem solving.
Yeah, thanks. Kailash, should you like to add some
Yeah,
example from your industry?
just echoing the what Ritika was talking about. See, the value engineering, it's basically pushes the organization to think out of the box. This is the one push which is given inherently because now we have a task which will force us or rather push us to think creatively and find out the solutions. What this does, this encourages the mindset of optimization. This is what is more important. I'm just talking about the people side of it. I'm not talking about the process side of it. I'm talking about the people side of it. It encourages the mindset of optimization into the team and efficiency. It's basically foster the innovation at every stage of the project, because now it becomes your habit of thinking in terms of optimization, in terms of adding value to it, and exploring new ideas and experimenting with different approaches. This mindset comes into when you make a culture of value engineering in every aspect. If you, from the inception of the project to the handing over of the project, and it drives the continuous improvement. It keeps the organization ahead of the curve in a rapidly changing world. Ultimately, the value engineering empowers the team. I'm not just talking about the process. Definitely it improves your tech time, it improves your efficiency, everything it does. But at the same time, it, on the human part side, it inculcate a habit of optimization, looking for efficiency, looking for adding the value. Yeah, Rajdeep.
Thanks, Kailash.
Yeah.
Next, we'd like to move towards our Prime Minister vision of Viksit Bharat. And when it comes to the Viksit Bharat, it has to go through small businesses because small is always beautiful. And if you look at the American economy, probably the biggest contributor are those small businesses. But definitely, the definition of small businesses in terms of India and America is, of course, different. But I know one thing very common that Krutivas, in his different job role, has come across and done a lot of hand holding to the small businesses. So, Krutivas, we'd like to know from you how the value engineering can help small businesses, particularly in the cost cutting of their operation or bringing the competitiveness among their peers. So, if you could take some examples from there and could help our people who are from the small business entity, how they introduce the whole concepts and get benefit out of it.
Sure. Thank you. That's very interesting. I will just take on from the point like Kailash said, no, people side of the organization, right? When we look at the value engineering, when we talk about the value engineering, it is more to do with people as well. Otherwise, it will not going to happen because the entire change management, change setup comes in. It could be the initial starting, or maybe it could be the project in a different stage of life cycle of the product. Now, coming to the small, medium scale industries, the problem what today's organization or maybe the SMEs are facing, uh, what I see in the industry as well, they do not have visibility and availability of information in their hand. So what is happening? What do you mean by that actually? So let's assume I run a organization some 50 crore, 100 crore, and there are a lot of decisions I make, right? But what happens as an SME, as SMB, I do not have a lot of information what is going on the system. I have to depend on the people what is happening in this today's world, right? Where a lot of things can happen, using a lot of innovations in terms of getting information across, right? So the point here is the SMB has to focus mostly on the as a failure or learning system. If you look at Amazon, how it has come up, right? Amazon has invested billions in the Fire Phone, right? And which is a huge fail. But they don't say it's a fail for us, right? They say it is 1,000 ways of learning for us. Now, from that failure, they got it. The Echo Dot or Alexa is coming from there, right? So the question is, you have to, as an organization, you have to reduce the bureaucracy, the ways of working, like how companies are adopting the agile ways of working, like the small pizza team we talk about, 8 to 9 people in the process, and have that failure journey as part of your system, right? And that's how they should focus on. Now, when you do that failure journey as part of your system, a lot of this value engineering comes to the play, because this team, the value engineering team, who's equipped and they don't have any fear, like somebody will say, okay, I lost my money, just go away. This team doesn't, I don't need this team, right? That doesn't work like that way, right? So people has to think that way. They have to invest, experiment. No, when you talk about innovation, like we talk about two different things, right? Experiment or exploitation. And exploitation, today's world is no more. Like, you can be a cost effective, or you can be a organizational effective as an organization, but your competitor also like that. So you cannot be sustaining as an innovative organization with that. You have to be experimenting, you have to be innovating as an organization. And that's where the value engineering team, as I said, 70% focus on the R&D and design, 30% on the manufacturing. And that's where 70% of value engineering, the concept comes in when we explore this any in the product, right? And in value engineering also, we say the function will remain same, but what alternative it can substitute that, right? My quality will not compromise, my function will not compromise, my cost will be optimized. And keeping these 3-4 ideas, how I can produce the better quality or better aesthetics. So for example, if you look at our today, we use mouse in our computer. Now this mouse has changed, right? Right, the function is same. You just for your laptop or system, but the design of mouse has been changed, and which exactly how the customer or the Gen Z people want, or how the customer is adopting it. So that's how the SMB has to think through when value engineering comes to play. Over to you, Rasdeep. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
some
thank
hands also on Pawan.
you.
Pawan,
Yes.
right? Yeah, yeah.
So let me allow Dr. Pawan. Yes. Pawan, would you like to share anything? He might be endorsing your views. That's
Okay.
what.
Okay, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Pawan. So I think, like, you appropriately touched all aspect of uh, how the small business can take benefit, and you have cited an examples also. And again, you have coined the term, don't look for an cost reduction, try to optimize it. And probably this could be the food for thought, because cost is, looking at the competitiveness of the small business, cost isn't paramount. But if you have a big vision, if you want to grow, you try to incorporate the cost optimization part of it instead of directly looking at the cost reduction. Moving ahead, this will be our last questions, because we will conclude with that. But this is also equally important aspect of the value engineering that we have discussed as of now, is what should be the strategies of the organizations to employ or to maintain the competitive edge, at the same time adapting and prioritizing the sustainability aspect of it, or environmental sustainability solutions, environmentally friendly solution to be precise. Even myself, in the last month, when I was in the inauguration of an hill tea plant, I also got amazed looking at the amount of money involved, keeping the environmental sustainability in mind. The whole, I believe, like, it's more than 40,000 square feet of plant that they have, and it's completely water cooled. And they said, like, this is Asia's first water cooled system. I know, like, in building that plant, the cost will be elevated like anything. And even Kailash was also, being from in this construction industry, he also was took example of that HVAC system, heating, ventilations, and air conditioning system. Nowadays everybody is adapting that, and they had took to the next level, water cooled system. They are not using all those uh, gases which are not environmentally suitable. So how, like, what will be the future of value engineering, when we need to keep in mind all those aspects? So I invite maybe Krutivas to educate us on these aspects. How we should simultaneously embrace the environmentally friendly solutions, but not at the cost of compromising with value engineering in terms of cost cutting and other things.
Sure, Asdeep. And this is actually the need of the hour, right? So having across the organization, they are signing to our climate condition. People are struggling how that sustainability report should come out. There are multiple standard setting organization, multiple organization regulatory. They're looking at it. Like in our SEBI also has brought in. There are some already companies started reporting on the sustainability, right? So now that is the need of the hour, and anything we do, this has to be one of the key core component for our product, for our project, or any kind of decision we make, right? It maybe be personal at home or at office. And that's how the future generation also thinking. That's how everybody is moving towards. Now without we quote, right, ESG, we cannot move in, right? Whatever we do, like for if you go and approach an investor, the first question comes in how it helps to the environment, how it helps the people, or governance, all of that, right? So that is the core component. Now Now, when you do value engineering, we do a lot of thinking, right? Lot of analysis. Like let's as we are discussing multiple areas, no, let's put an example of air conditioner, right? Now, in air conditioner, what is the main function? It has to give no, cool the room, or somebody has to have a good sleep, or have a good environment at his home. Now, that's the function. Now, at cost of what that function is coming out? No, how it is impacting the environment, right? Now, in that, if the companies who are manufacturing those air conditioner, they could able to say, okay, if you on your air condition for 5 hours or 8 hours, this much of environmental impact is going to happen. That's how, or maybe the ratings also we are today getting how much energy it is consuming. So if this kind of information comes to the market, now people get aware, and that company also do lot good actually, because they will get a lot of investor, they will get a lot of customer, all of that happens. Now, but to reach at that end stage, all of this has to be a thought process when you start your product designing, and that's nothing but about your value engineering. Now, our value engineering should start from the day one, and when the product actually move, right? Because I cannot have a product sustain or continuously for a long term. I have to change that product. Now, the time I started thinking about the product change, I should bring this team to the table and start answering those questions, like what it will do, what alternative I have. And as I said, everywhere, every situation, we have to report the carbon footprint, right? And that's how it should be part of all the decision we make. Rajdeep, yeah.
So I guess, like, to articulate this, that this is the future ahead, and we all should really embrace that. Yeah, Kailash, rather I want actually each one of your opinion on that. Yeah, please, Kailash.
I'll add some value to this in terms of sustainability. See, this is my passionate area of thinking rather nowadays, because now the situation is where either you have to act or you have to perish. This is what is the climate change is telling. Now, if you see the reports, we have already crossed 1.5 degree centigrade before the industrial era. So now the situation is, and this all value engineering, if I talk about my industry, the built environment adds 37% of the carbon to the this thing environment, emission of built environment is, and this is all because of having copying the Western way of working, the Western designs, the Western things. Whether we need a AC, air conditioner, we don't need a AC. It is there in US. Let's put it. If I'll say in a simple Hindi word mein agar main bolu, there are only 4-5 things which are important. Number 1 is bhavan. Number 2 is bhasha. Number 3 is bhojan. Number 4 is this thing, bhesh, which we call it dress. If we control only these things, more than 80% of our carbon footprint will be reduced. Let's focus on particularly to the housing side or built environment side. The built environment, the material which we are using, the design of the house, the ventilation of this, whether this is a properly ventilated house, it's not a ventilated house. What are the energy requirements of this? Can we add a renewable energy part of it? Can it be a self-sufficient? If we can add these things into our design thinking itself from the beginning, that will be a good value engineering to this built environment. Then it is not only cost effective, this will be energy efficient also, that will reduce your footprint also, and that will go ahead with the future way of your built environment rather. So not only carbon footprints, but also net zero buildings we can produce if we are addressing, or if we are only aligning with our own systems and not following it up without thinking the European way of working. European way of working is where heat is, they actually keep the heat out of the house because there is cold there. But here we bring it in. This is all just opposite. So we have to think this way, that there is a lot of difference between these two. Uh, and by prioritizing the sustainability, particularly in this value engineering efforts, the organization can not only reduce their carbon footprint but also can appeal to the environmentally conscious consumer also, because lastly this value, to whom this value is adding, we are adding to the last consumer, or customer, or whoever is the last user of this, and that will give a competitive advantage to any of the industry, any of the agency rather. So this will be a win-win situation for both, for business as well as to the planet. Yeah, Rasdeep, this is what my point on this is.
Thanks, Kailash. Ritika, now it's your turn to add to our sustainability pledge for
No, I think like great stuff. I mean, I agree with Krutibas and Kailash on this. I mean, I feel like, of course, if any value engineering activities that you're thinking of doing, whether it's in your product or your processes, and like I speak as an engineer here, if they're solely focused on cost reduction without considering the impact that it has on the environment, on the quality, it could be very unsustainable, right? I mean, for example, sometimes we look at producing lower cost, getting components that are of a lower cost. So, but that doesn't mean that we get into business with companies that are known for, neglecting ethical considerations or even labor practices and those kind of things. So, all of this should be considered when we are looking into, adding value, enhancing value in our products, processes, and systems. And uh, sole focus on cost could be very unsustainable, and it could be very detrimental to your brand, whether it's a small organization or a big organization. And I think, like you all said, it's the need of the hour. It's the most essential need of the hour. We've already crossed that point where we can, reverse climate change. So let's try to do the best, the most that we can right now with what we have. That's from me, Rajdeep.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that sustainability has its own, and to start with the way Krutibas explained these aspects, that there is no other way out for us or even industries, if we don't incorporate sustainability and environmentally friendly solution in our day-to-day practice.
Rajdeep,
With that, yeah,
just 1 minute. Actually, this will be my request. If you can add one complete session next week or next after, whenever you have a time, on the sustainability and this part of it, because this is very, very important now.
yeah, of course, for sure. We should also take this forward. So to conclude with, I hope like we already crossed our scheduled time, and our esteemed panelist as well as our esteemed listener also has some commitment. For some of them, probably dinner is also waiting. We are in between the dinner. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for showing your commitment for the cause and being with us for this important
I think
deliberation on.
somebody has raised some hand, I think.
It's very difficult. Probably they are praising, like it's
Okay,
because
fine, fine.
I'll get a notification when they raise. But
Okay.
like sometimes those clap emojis and
Got it, got
hand
it,
raise
got it.
emojis are,
Yes.
yeah. So they come for an instantaneously and then it goes. That you means that they are praising you, and if it remain then it means that they want to pitch in. But anyway, so we'll invite, if you have anything to be discussed on this, you just go to our event page and you can give your comments there. We'll definitely try to address this through our panelists. We will raise those comments to our esteemed panelists and probably they will also reply. So with that, we'd like to thank everyone for
Thank you, Rajdeep.
joining
you.
us. Yeah.
Thank you
And
very much,
I believe
Rajdeep.
it's
Thank you very much,
yeah.
Kritika. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Kailash.
We
Thank
always
you,
have.
everyone.
Thank you. Great session. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thanks. Hope to host you all sometime in the future.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.